Hello, and welcome to Communicate to Lead, the podcast that empowers leaders and aspiring leaders to communicate with clarity and impact. I'm Kele Belton, CEO and successful entrepreneur, and your host for today. I'm here to equip you with all the essential tools and strategies to master effective communication and lead your team to success. As the founder and CEO of The Tailored Approach, my goal is to empower you to be the best leader you can be. So sit back, relax, and join me in today's episode as we dive into the art of communicating like a true leader.
What if I told you that the difference between leaders whose requests get approved and those who don't isn't what they're asking for? It's about how they are asking for it. I'm watching this play out right now with the leader I'm working with. Same person, same legitimate need, same compelling data. But when she presented her request one way, her boss dismissed it with, "Everyone's doing more with less these days." Yet when she learned to reframe that exact same request using a different approach, suddenly she's getting engaged questions from leadership and requests for formal proposals. Nothing changed except her strategy. Welcome back to Communicate to Lead. I'm Kele Belton, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to shift from someone whose reasonable requests get brushed aside to someone whose proposals get serious consideration and often approval. If you've ever felt like you're speaking a different language when you ask for what you need, if your legitimate requests seem to hit a brick wall, or if you're tired of being told to just make it work when you know there's a better way, this episode is going to give you a different approach that works. I'm sharing a framework I call Becoming a Data-Driven Advocate. And by the end of our time together, you'll know exactly how to build cases so compelling that saying no becomes nearly impossible. Settle in, because we're about to shift how you make requests and how people respond to them. So let me tell you more about the leader I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. We'll call her Amanda. Amanda had built an entire payroll department from scratch for a company with over 13,000 employees across various locations. Incredible accomplishment, right? But here's the challenge. She was running this massive operation with what she called a skeleton crew. The workload was crushing her team. They were facing compliance issues, and the company was being hit with penalties because they simply didn't have enough staff to do the work properly. When Amanda would go to her boss to explain the situation, she'd hear things like, "Everyone's doing more with less these days," or "You're doing fine, just keep pushing through." You've probably heard some variation of this before. Amanda was doing what I see so many accomplished women leaders do. She was leading with how the situation felt by talking about how overwhelmed her team was, how stressed everyone felt, and how hard they were working. And while all of that is true and valid, it wasn't the language that resonates with decision makers who think in terms of business impact, risk management, and bottom line results. That's when we started working on a completely different approach. Instead of focusing on how she felt or what she needed, we began coaching her on how to become a data-driven advocate. We are currently building her business case using this framework, and the shift in how she thinks about these conversations has been remarkable. She's learning to translate her legitimate needs into the language that leadership speaks. The difference isn't what she's asking for, but how she is asking for it. Now, before we go further, I want to be crystal clear. Your feelings matter. Your team stress levels matter. The fact that you are overwhelmed matters. But here's what I've learned after years of coaching leaders and teams. The people making budget and resource decisions don't make them based on feelings. They make them based on data, risk assessment, and business impact. Here's a perfect example. Imagine you trying to convince your partner that you should buy an electric vehicle. You could talk about how much you care about the environment, how excited you'd be to have this latest technology, how good it would make you feel to reduce your carbon footprint. All of that might be true, but it's not as compelling as saying, we spend about $3,000 a year on fuel. An electric car would cut that to under $500 in electricity costs. And with the federal tax credit, it essentially pays for itself within 3 years. Do you hear the difference? The same principles applies to your requests at work. When you focus on how something makes you feel or what you personally need, you are essentially making an emotional appeal to someone who's trained to think logically and strategically. But when you present data that shows business impact, risk mitigation, or financial implications, you are speaking their language. You are gaining their buy-in. This is why so many capable, hardworking women get frustrated when their requests are dismissed. It's not that their requests are invalid. It's that they are presenting them in a way that doesn't resonate with decision makers. So what is the solution? Well, the solution is to become a data-driven advocate. A data-driven advocate doesn't ignore the human element, but she leads with business logic and supports her case with concrete evidence that ties directly to organizational goals and outcomes. All right, let's get practical. I'm going to give you a 3-step framework that will help you build unshakable cases for whatever you need. I call it collect, connect, present. Yes, you heard that correctly. Collect, connect, present. So here is step 1, which is all about collecting your data. The first step is gathering concrete, measurable information about your current situation. This isn't about opinions or feelings. It's all about facts and numbers. Here's what you want to collect. Workload metrics. How many tasks, projects, or transactions are you handling? What's the volume compared to industry standards or previous periods? Time tracking. How long do current processes take? Where are the bottlenecks? Number 3, error rates and compliance issues. What problems are occurring because of current limitations? Number 4, financial impact. What is the current situation costing the organization? This could be penalties, lost opportunities, overtime costs, or inefficiencies. And lastly, number 5, comparison data. How do your resources compare to similar departments or industry benchmarks? Go back to Amanda's story. She started tracking everything. She documented that her 3-person team was processing payroll for over 13,000 employees, while industry standards suggested she needed at least 6 people for that volume. She calculated the hours her team was working overtime and the associated costs. She documented every compliance penalty the company had received and tied them directly to understaffing. Here's a key insight. Most people skip the step of collecting data because it feels time-consuming or because they think their needs should be obvious to their boss. And you might be thinking, can't they see how overwhelmed we are? Isn't it clear we need more resources? But what you need to keep in mind is your boss isn't living in your day-to-day operations. What feels glaringly obvious to you might be completely invisible to them. So this data collection phase is where you build your foundation and make the invisible visible. So that is step 1, collecting your data. Step 2 is connect to business impact. Now you need to translate your data into language that matters to decision makers. This means connecting every piece of information to one of 3 things: revenue impact, cost savings, or risk mitigation. For example, instead of saying, we are making mistakes because we are rushed, try, current staffing levels are causing us to miss tax filing deadlines regularly, resulting in about $15,000 in penalties per quarter. Proper staffing would prevent most of these errors, saving us over $40,000 annually in avoidable penalties. Or instead of, we need more people, try, our current workload forces us to process payroll corrections reactively rather than catching errors upfront. This creates costly emergency check requests and requires significant overtime hours. Adding 1 payroll specialist at $60,000 annually would allow us to review payroll proactively, preventing most emergency corrections and eliminating overtime. That would create savings that more than covers the new hire salary. This is where you become a strategic business partner rather than simply being someone who is asking for help. That is step 2. Now that you have collected your data, you have connected it to business impact, the final step is presenting it with purpose. Your presentation needs to be crisp, logical, and focused on outcomes. Here's a structure that I recommend. Number one, share the current state and tell your decision makers, here's what's happening now, and include data. Number two, share the business impact. Here's what it's costing us, and be sure to give them numbers around those. Number three, give them your proposed solution. Here's what I recommend, and make sure that it's specific and actionable. Number four, give them your expected outcomes. Here's what we can expect, and give them some projections that they can work with. And finally, do not leave out next steps. Tell them, here's how we move forward, and here is the deadline. Never forget the deadline. You want to tell them, here's where we move forward, and we need to do it by this particular date. The power of this approach lies in transforming the conversation from Jenny needs help, Amanda needs support, to here's a business opportunity with clear ROI. When you present data this way, you are speaking the language that financial decision makers understand and respond to. Now, let's talk about 3 advanced strategies that will make your advocacy even more powerful. Strategy 1, use comparison. Instead of presenting your situation in isolation, compare to something your audience already values. For example, you could say, our customer service team has 1 person for every 500 customers, while our payroll team has 1 person for every 4,000 employees. This creates significant risk in an area where mistakes have immediate legal consequences. Comparisons help decision makers quickly understand your situation relative to something they already think is reasonable. Strategy 2, propose a pilot. If asking for something you need feels too big, feel free to start smaller. Here's what you could offer. I'd like to propose a 90-day pilot, adding 1 team member to test the impact on our error rates and overtime costs. After 90 days, we can evaluate the results and determine next steps. Pilots tend to feel less risky to decision makers, and it gives you a chance to prove your case with real results. That's strategy 2. And here's the final strategy. Strategy 3, connect to company goals. Be sure to link your request to larger organizational priorities. This staffing adjustment directly supports our goal to reduce operational risk this quarter while preparing us for the expansion without compromising quality. When your request becomes a way to achieve broader company objectives, approval becomes much more likely. Remember, you are not being manipulative with these strategies. You are simply translating legitimate needs into language that resonates with how business decisions are made. Now, let's make it a little bit personal for you. Think about a resource or support you need right now in your role. Maybe it's additional team members, updated technology, professional development budget, or recognition for the work you are already doing. Take a moment to ask yourself the following questions. Question 1, what data could I collect to quantify the current situation? The second question is, how does this impact revenue, costs, or risk for my organization? Number 3, what specific outcomes could I project if my request were approved? And lastly, number 4, how does this align with broader organizational goals? So here's your homework for this week. Pick a resource or support you need and spend 30 minutes collecting actual data about it. Don't worry about building the full case yet. Simply start with collecting the data, because when you start collecting the data, you will get a clearer picture of why you need it, how it will help the organization, and how you can make a case to your decision makers. So track time, count transactions, calculate costs, research benchmarks in your industry or organization, whatever applies to your situation. You might be surprised by what you discover. Often the data reveals that your situation is even more compelling than you initially realized. I had a client who thought she was just feeling overwhelmed. When she tracked her data, she discovered she was managing 40% more projects than her peers while maintaining higher quality scores. That data became the foundation for a compelling promotion request, which she eventually received. Another client realized her department was processing twice the industry average volume with half the standard resources. That insight helped her build a strong business case for additional tools and resources. The data helps you make better requests and often enables you to better understand the value you are already providing to your organization, to your team, and even to your decision makers. So, as we wrap up our episode today, here are the key takeaways from our time together today. Your needs are valid. Your requests are legitimate, but how you present them determines whether they get heard or dismissed. When you become a data-driven advocate, you are not changing what you're asking for. You are changing how you ask for it. You are speaking the language that decision makers understand and respond to. This approach works because it shifts the entire conversation. Instead of making requests, you are presenting solutions. Instead of asking for help, you are offering value. So start with that data collection. Start connecting your needs to business impact and start presenting your requests as the strategic opportunities they truly are. The framework is solid and it works. Now it's time for you to put it into practice. And you've got this, my friend. I believe in you. You have done the work, and it's all about how you package it to your decision makers. Thank you for spending your time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Send me a message on LinkedIn or email me through my website. And remember, clear communication helps you be understood and drives the results that matter. Until next Thursday, my friend, I am Kele, reminding you that great communication is the foundation of inspiring leadership. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember to communicate to lead.